On Nationwide this evening, two stalwarts of Ireland in the good old days, one of them no longer with us, the other still going strong. We bring you back to the school around the corner where Paddy Crosby and his wonderful child stars entertained us on Telefís and Ireland's own magazine, booking all the trends after more than 100 years being published. We're in festive and nostalgic mood this evening, and we're going to take a trip down memory lane. Now, for those of you on the wrong side of 40, the school around the corner will no doubt ring a fond bell. But for our younger viewers, well, let me fill you in. It was a very popular television programme that featured the views and stories of school children, and it was filmed in schools up and down the land. You may have heard that RTE has been looking for children who featured in a newly discovered early edition of the programme that was broadcast 50 years ago this month. And through the power of radio and newspaper advertisements, we have found not one but three of those children that featured in that early programme. And Niall Martin showed them how they looked and sounded all those years ago.
School around the corner from Cork, VTR 3072A. 9th of November 62, transmission TBA.
In November 1962, Telefís camera crews came to Cork to record an episode of School Around the Corner. RTE was only a few months on the air, but already the home-produced show was a huge hit. It was a simple idea, but a charming one. Have a chat with primary school children and watch them perform a rhyme, a recitation or a dance.
Now we have our children lined up here in our desks. Of course, they come from different schools here in Cork.
The show's host was Paddy Crosby, a school teacher himself.
First little girl there with the yellow pullover, jumper, or whatever she calls it, I don't know, is Mary McQuaid.
Yes, sir.
A few weeks ago put out a call to find these four children, who now would be in their 50s and 60s. We found three of them, two still living in Cork and a third in Calgary in Canada.
And way down, way down upon the Swanee there on his own is a little fella called Noel O'Driscoll.
Because there was no tape available of the show up until now, many of Noel O'Driscoll's family and friends didn't really believe his story, that he was one of the first people on television in Ireland.
What's your name?
Noel O'Driscoll, sir.
Noel O'Driscoll. Do you remember we asked you today?
When I met Noel first, even before we were married, and he was to say that he was on School Around the Corner, and he used to say he sang Katie Daly. So when I introduced him then to my family, my brothers and sisters all younger than me, and if he said anything wrong, he used to be all in the corner saying, "What's wrong with Katie Daly?" And he was getting very bad. He used to be saying, "I was on the telly, I wasn't," but he had no proof, so we didn't know whether he was making it up or whether it was imagination or what.
But now there is proof that Noel O'Driscoll really was on television back in 1962. And it was just by chance that a tape of the show was discovered this summer.
So I know it's hard to imagine today when we can record everything that you couldn't possibly have a television programme from 50 years ago. But back in 1962, television, nobody really thought that you could watch something again. It went out once and that was it, you know. In those days, television was a very different thing, and we had massive tapes they used to record the programmes on. They were really expensive. In fact, the tapes were more expensive than making the programme. So we didn't think we had any School Around the Corners left at all from the 60s, even though it was the most popular programme on television at the time.
Somewhere the sun is shining.
And we were really lucky this year when a student who was in with us, Ken Griffin, who was working in UTV at the time, said to me, "I've seen cans in UTV that have the School Around the Corner on them." So I contacted UTV, and they sent us down the film. We opened the cans hoping it would be an episode of the School Around the Corner, and we were delighted to find that here from 50 years ago was the most popular programme that was on television at the time, and there you were in it yourself.
We may expect trouble here. Turn around to me. That's it. Now, won't you talk to me? That's a fine big tummy. Have you a good big tea in there? Have you?
I
You
have,
have.
sir.
What's your name?
Noel O'Driscoll, sir.
Noel O'Driscoll. Do you remember we asked you today to shout, didn't we?
When I was on it at the time, You were like a star in the school when it happened. Like you were, everyone knew who you were then. And we were the first in Ballyvia to get a television because I was on that. But I told all them for years. I went to RT to try and get it. They had said they didn't have it. But luckily enough, now he came up with it. And that's why I have all them here, because I'll be looking at them in years to come. When we get a tape of this, when they are grown up with the help of God.
Right. Do you know any fairy stories?
I do, sir.
You do? Jack and the Beanstalk?
Yes, sir.
You know that one? And do you know the Three Bears?
In years to come, it'll be absolutely fantastic for be able to say, look, that's us watching our granda when he was 5, and look at the age that we were, and they might be able to say to their kids in 50 years' time, you know, that look at us now, kind of. So I think it's fantastic.
Can you sing a song? I heard you practicing with Katie Daly. Will you sing?
Noel finished up with a belting version of Katie Daly.
Come down from the mountain, Katie Daly. Come down from the mountain, Katie Daly. Oh, can you hear me calling, Katie Daly? What do you think that I was?
Oh, sure, Jesus, I don't know. What am I supposed to say, like? Yeah, that is great. It's great to have
I
it.
think it's fantastic.
Today, Maureen Dugain, or Duggan as she is now, lives in Calgary in Canada. In Ireland this Christmas.
Mahan Colleen. Nish, cad is anam ditje?
Morning, the man is Annam Town.
Take what I'm saying. Maran Gugain, agus Kenny Shoe.
Tamak clean it is.
Agus 10 to a skull gakla.
Team.
Gakilala.
Sha.
Akawan, Nuravin 2.
Brota.
Nuravin 2 Brota. Will Baboga got?
Tachi Baboga gum.
3 keen. Cadid na Hanam nacha at Arna Baboga.
Siobhan agus Mar agus Nula.
Siobhan or agus Nula. Kehog Siobhan did. Mantin agus Kehog Nula got.
Daddy Nanola.
Daddy Nanola agus Kehog and Trio Dali did.
Uncle.
Uncle.
The hair, oh yes, well, those ringlets look perfect, and they were put in by my mother, and I think at that age I probably had ringlets put in every night because we danced Irish dancing quite a lot, and so they were put in with clips, not rags. I remember those clips because they dig into your scalp when you're sleeping.
Moira was adept at maths, aged just 8.
We went to one of the neighbours' homes to watch this, and my brother actually remembered the name of the family, so their name was Barry or Barry's, probably Barry. And they had invited, it seemed to me, all the neighbours, because there was an awful lot of people there to watch the show. And I did watch the show, and I had a sense of being a little anxious because maybe I screwed up, you know? And, but I didn't. But I was very serious, clearly, in this.
So what's it like looking back at yourself on a tape 50 years old?
Like, initially, it's one of wonder and then amazement. And a little sadness, you know, because it's all so long ago. And it was a very innocent time. Yeah. It was 1962. That was the year before John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So, you know, it seemed a lot of things changed after that.
All right, that's a bit of that. Come on, Colleen.
Paddy Crosby was looking for characters for his show, and in Stephen Butt, he struck gold.
Stephen Butt, sir.
Stephen Butt. What age are you, Stephen?
10, sir.
When will you be 11?
So he was 11 on the 16th of May.
You were 11 on the 6th of May and you're still 10.
There wasn't a television set in the Butt household, so on the night of the screening, Stephen and his siblings walked down to the television shop in town to watch himself on screen in the shop window. From outside in the cold, he never heard anything he actually said on television that night.
My mother found out when to be on, you know, because that time you had no kind of contact. Like, there were no phones all at that time. But she found out then when it was on, she must have got a date in December, and we walked in the Boreen, down Shannon Street, up to Norman Street, and there was a shop, Telefusion, I think it was called, and we looked at it and doing that.
Have you funny incident, Stephen? Yeah, nice short one, is it? Go ahead.
Have you ever seen a...
Oh, wait a minute, that's your recitation. No, it's a funny incident.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, that was the first time now. And my family and I never saw that. I was believed I never. Like my mum, and I think there's Oliver and Shaw was with us, my other brother. I don't think my father even saw it. But astonishing.
Have you ever seen a snake going off for walks? With his house on his back and his eyes on stalks? When he had finished, he rolls them in his head. And goes inside his tiny house and tucks himself to bed.
You never think like that's so funny until you actually see it, you know what I mean? And what you've done, like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe it. I'd remember everything, like the sticks and all in the end, do it in. But then I hesitated at the end, you know what I mean? And then he tucked himself to bed.
Well, that was lovely. You're the funniest looking snail I ever saw.
It was kind of new at the time, it was only just starting out at the time, really, like. But, like, to be honest, it was something else, like, you know what I mean? It was astonishing, like.
And the word is go.
At the end of each show, the children got to play with toys, and there was a prize of a box of sweets. But Noel O'Driscoll, aged 5, was totally absorbed with his prize of a toy rifle. This only surviving episode of School Around the Corner will be shown on RTE1 at 5:10 on December 23rd.
Well, I think we'll give it to Mary. Yes, Mary has it. So we'll give the box of sweets to Mary and she'll divide with the other children. And that brings us...
Weren't those wonderfully innocent times, as recalled there in Paddy Crosby's School Around the Corner. Now, after the break, we're having a birthday celebration, and if you were to have the requisite number of candles on the cake, let me tell you, you'd have to have the fire brigade on standby. Join us again in a couple of minutes. You're welcome back to Nationwide, where nostalgia is very much in the air. We've already had memories of school days and now memories of a grand old publication which publishes every week and also has a special at Christmas time. If I were to say to you, Kitty the Hare, Cassidy Says, history articles, pen friends and jokes, you'd know I was talking about Ireland's Own, which this year celebrates its 110th birthday. It's a family-run publication which continues to hold its own in a very challenging market. And we spoke to some well-known people about the enduring charm of Ireland's Own.
Patricia Scanlon is an international best-selling author. Her connection to the Ireland's Own magazine goes back to her childhood, when she used to visit her Auntie Peg in Rosslare in County Wexford.
She was selling Ireland's Own when I was about 8 years of age. My Auntie Peg used to work in the bookstall down in Eason's on the pier in Rosslare Harbour. And Ireland's Own was one of the big sellers. And one of my treats, if I was a very good girl, was to be brought down at night when the mailboat would be going out and the last train would be coming in, and the excitement and the buzz of the place and the vibrancy of it. But my big treat was to be able to hand out the magazines. Now, of course, Auntie Peg did all the cash transaction, I hasten to add. But it was so exciting. And then she used to read Kitty the Hare. That was absolutely Auntie Peg's favourite, and so many people that I talked to about Ireland's Own, I think Kitty the Hare was their favourite. But of course then there was always the children's bits, the jokes, the puzzles. They were the bits I loved. And even today, you know, children still love that part of it.
There is no other magazine or paper or book like it. It goes into all our lives. It was there even before I came. It was there, which is extraordinary. And as a child in Doneraile in County Cork, where my father was a gardener, we used to get the Beano, little comic, but also the Island's Own was there. And I would be cheeky and to the shop, I'd go flicking through the pages. I think its enduring charm is that people love it, it appeals to people. It has changed, but not changed. We're all part of it still. Anywhere in Ireland you go, you could reflect on Ireland's Own, you could see it. Even the wretched crosswords that I do now and again, that seem very simple when you're about 19 at 1:30 in the morning. So it's the last thing I read at night is the Island's Own. I go to bed alongside with the Island's Own alongside me. I'll be careful of my phrasing. With the Island's Own alongside me there, and it's a wonderful, warm-hearted magazine.
Retired civil servant John Berkery has been writing for Ireland's Own for over 12 years. It was a chance reading of the magazine that rekindled his interest.
I was driving up from Cork one day about 12, 13 years ago, or maybe more, and I called into, it was the old road, and I called into Abbey Leaks for a cup of coffee. And I was sitting there having a cup of coffee, and I saw a copy of Ireland's Own on the windowsill. Now, I hadn't read Ireland's Own since I was a teenager down in West Cork, and my parents used to get it, and I liked the magazine. I don't know why I liked it then, but as I went through it, and I was struck by the fact that it was almost exactly the same as what I remembered it. And that's the charming thing about it. You know what's there. The articles are different, the stories are different, but the setup is the same. And that people, Irish people, are generally nice people. And then there's the boy meets girl page. Some of them are not boys any longer, and some of the girls I won't say. And but I'm told that there are many marriages have happened as a result of this down through the years. But I like the challenge of writing an article, not for money now, but writing an article just so that somebody will be pleased enough to read it and say, yeah, I'll publish that.
Ireland's Own is a weekly publication, which this year celebrates its 100th and 10th birthday.
Well, we're in the file room of Ireland's Own, and here we have all of the issues since we were first published on the 26th of November 1902. We actually have the first issue here still, and we have all of the issues down through the years. You can see them all lined up here, and it's interesting to see the difference in size, really, as you go through the years. In the last 10 years, we've increased the size of the weekly issue from 32 pages to 64, for instance, which is responsible for those volumes looking quite fat. And down here, just behind me, we have the issues that were produced during the World War II. Now, they're very thin volumes, because at that time, there was paper rationing, and we had to reduce the size of the magazine, and also we had to come out once a fortnight rather than weekly.
This family magazine has been published by People newspapers in Wexford since 1902.
The idea came from a man called John Mellifont Walsh, a nice mellifluous name. He actually wanted to counteract what he described as the flood of vicious and pernicious literature that was coming into the country from abroad, mainly England. So obviously they had tabloids in those days as well.
When we're in danger of losing all our own traditions and all the old ways of being, that you can't ask, because people have passed away, you can't ask them about it, you'll invariably find something really interesting in Ireland's Own. And I think that's part of its magic.
In 1902, Ireland was still under British rule. Edward VII was crowned King of England, and evictions were becoming a thing of the past with the ending of the Land War.
I think things were starting to look up a little bit. The Gaelic League was in operation. There was a bit of a revival in Irish interest at the time, and apparently literacy was becoming much better at that time. So he was probably riding in on the crest of a little wave, really, you know.
Ireland's Own is not a glossy magazine, but with the improvements in technology, it has updated its image.
We did embrace the new technology, even though you might consider it a little bit contradictory for Ireland's Own, but it's terrific from the point of view of production, and we have colour on every page now in the magazine. Ireland's Own stands out on the magazine shelves because it's not glossy.
In more recent years, Ireland's Own has changed the style of its cover.
We used to have a series of watercolours, just nice seams. They weren't particularly related to any particular story in the magazine. And Jane Dorn and Stephen Brown would have been contributors to a lot of those. And they still actually do a lot of work for us to illustrate all the fictional short stories for us.
Phil Murphy and Sean Nolan are the two editors that put the magazine together, and sales of Ireland's Own have remained steady despite the economic downturn.
We have ABC figures of close on 40,000 a week, and we would have quite a few on subscription as well that go to the States and to Britain. And we have a remarkable thing about Ireland's Own that I think probably wouldn't be repeated with most magazines. It's passed on all over the place.
One of the most popular sections of the magazine is the Thanksgiving page.
Now this is where we publish little prayers, and people like to be associated with them. They're actually offering thanksgiving for favours received, or they're appealing for a favour to be granted, and they pray to St. Anthony. The miracle prayer is a very popular one, St. Course, and all those. It's a service we provide, really.
Writing competitions have always been a feature of Ireland's Own, but 3 years ago the magazine published the first of 3 books of original writing.
About 5 years ago, Original Writing, who are a self-publishing company based in Dublin, came on board with us and started to sponsor the competition. And the next follow-on 3 years ago was that we would produce a book of the prize winners and some of the highly recommended short stories and memoirs each year.
They do support this anthology every year. They support young writers, old writers, anybody who's got something to say. And there's not too much of that around now, and that's one thing that you have to give them huge praise for. They're very encouraging of people who are writing. And I just think it's lovely. There's a lot of talent there. It's pity publishing is in the doldrums a little bit, because we need new voices. We always need new voices. So I would say to anybody out there who writes, send your pieces to Ireland's Own, and you might be lucky enough to get published in their anthology.
A very happy birthday to Ireland's Own, and here's to the next 110 years. Well, we've come to the end of this evening's programme. We'll be back with you on Wednesday, and remember, this night next week is Christmas Eve. An awful lot to be done in 7 days. There's a great air of festivity here in Dublin City, and the girls from Loretto carol singing to raise money for the elderly, the homeless and the poor this Christmas. A reminder that if there's carol singers in your area, do support them. Iwa Govinish, agus Gadeshav Slán. The ringing of bells is a central part of Christmas, and on next Wednesday's Nationwide we bring you the story of a very special and very historic bell. Our programme takes us from a lakeshore in County Westmeath to a tiny village in the Spanish countryside. The link between the two places is unique and makes for a heartwarming story at this time of the year.